Greetings, everyone. I'm diving into the questions and key takeaways from our recent Bible study session. Most recently, we continued our journey through the book of Acts, covering chapter 25 through chapter 26, verse 32. All right, let's dive deeper. Pause the video. When you finish reading the passage in Acts chapter 25, verses 1 through 12, press the play button to continue the video. Welcome back. Now, let's consider this question. Why did Paul want to appeal to Caesar? Let's delve into the summary of this question. In this passage, Acts chapter 25, verses 1 through 12, we find Paul, a prisoner, standing before Festus, the new Roman governor. Festus, eager to curry favor with the Jewish leaders, proposes that Paul go to Jerusalem to be tried there. Paul, however, understands the dangers awaiting him in Jerusalem and makes a pivotal decision. He appeals to Caesar. This moment holds profound implications for the modern church and the spread of the gospel, revealing compelling reasons for Paul's appeal that resonate even today. One of the most compelling reasons Paul appealed to Caesar was to ensure his safety and continued ministry. Paul knew that returning to Jerusalem would be a death sentence. The Jewish leaders had repeatedly plotted to kill him. By appealing to Caesar, Paul effectively removed himself from the immediate threat of assassination at the hands of those who opposed his message. For the modern church, this highlights the importance of strategic thinking and valuing the lives of those dedicated to ministry. While we are called to be bold, wisdom dictates that we do not needlessly put ourselves in harm's way when there are legitimate avenues for protection and continuation of the work. The spread of the gospel often requires perseverance, and preserving the lives of effective evangelists is crucial for that continuity. Furthermore, Paul's appeal to Caesar served as a powerful declaration of his innocence and the legitimacy of the gospel message within the Roman legal system. Paul consistently asserted that he had committed no offense against Jewish law or Roman law. By appealing to the highest court in the Roman Empire, he was, in essence, forcing a definitive ruling on his case, which in turn would indirectly validate the nature of his preaching. For the modern church, this underscores the necessity of upholding truth and seeking justice, even in the face of opposition. When the gospel is slandered or misrepresented, we are called to defend its integrity, demonstrating that its message is not subversive or illegal, but transformative and beneficial. This legal precedent, though not directly about the gospel, served to clear the way for its spread by showing that its adherents were not criminal. Finally, Paul's appeal to Caesar was a divinely orchestrated step to bring the gospel to the highest levels of Roman authority, fulfilling a prophetic word given to him earlier in his ministry. In Acts chapter 23, verse 11, the Lord stood by Paul and said, quote, "Take courage, as you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify in Rome," unquote. Paul's appeal was not merely a tactical move, but a direct fulfillment of God's plan to spread the gospel to the ends of the known world, starting with the heart of the Roman Empire. This serves as a potent reminder for the modern church that God often uses unexpected circumstances and even challenging situations to advance his kingdom. The spread of the gospel is not always through conventional means, and sometimes it requires us to step into uncomfortable or seemingly insurmountable situations, trusting that God has a purpose in it all, even to reach those in positions of power and influence. Paul's journey to Rome, though as a prisoner, ultimately opened doors for the gospel to be heard by emperors and imperial guards alike, demonstrating that God's plan for evangelism transcends all human limitations. Let's now shift our focus to Acts chapter 25, verses 13 through 22. Pause the video. When you finish reading the passage, Acts chapter 25, verses 13 through 22, press the play button to continue the video. Welcome back. Now, let's explore this key question. In what way was Paul the judge, while Agrippa and Festus were actually prisoners on trial? Let's delve into the summary of this question. In this passage, Acts chapter 25, verses 13 through 22, we witness a fascinating shift in dynamics as Paul stands before King Agrippa and Governor Festus. What appears to be a formal hearing quickly transforms into something far more profound. Paul, the prisoner, subtly but powerfully assumes the role of the judge, putting his captors and audience on trial. This has significant implications for the modern church in its mission to spread the gospel. One of the most impactful ways Paul functioned as a judge was by exposing the emptiness of their legal proceedings and their lack of true understanding. Festus, a Roman governor, admits to Agrippa that he is, quote, at a loss how to investigate such matters, unquote, concerning Paul's case, particularly regarding, quote, a dead man named Jesus who Paul claimed was alive, unquote. Agrippa, though familiar with Jewish customs, is likewise drawn into this confusion. Paul, in his subsequent defense, brilliantly highlights their ignorance about the very essence of the charges against him, the resurrection of Jesus. For the modern church, this demonstrates the power of the gospel to reveal the spiritual bankruptcy of worldly systems and philosophies. When we stand for truth, the superficiality of arguments built on human wisdom, devoid of divine revelation, becomes glaringly obvious. The world, in its pursuit of justice or knowledge, often misses the foundational truths that the gospel provides, leaving them, like Festus, quote, at a loss, unquote, in the face of life's ultimate questions. Furthermore, Paul assumed the role of judge by compelling Festus and Agrippa to confront the reality of the resurrected Christ. While they sought to understand a legal case, Paul continually steered the conversation back to the person of Jesus and the profound implications of his resurrection. Festus' confession about Paul's, quote, points of dispute about a dead man named Jesus who Paul claimed was alive, unquote, reveals that the true subject of the trial was not Paul's alleged crimes, but the living Christ. Paul, through his unwavering testimony, placed the very core of their beliefs and worldview on trial. This applies to the modern church as we engage with a skeptical world. We're not merely defending ourselves or our traditions. We're presenting a living Lord who demands a response. By faithfully proclaiming the resurrection, we challenge individuals to move beyond the superficial intellectual curiosity and confront the life-altering truth of Jesus, thereby placing their own spiritual standing on trial. Finally, Paul acted as a judge by forcing Festus and Agrippa to acknowledge the moral righteousness of his conduct, implicitly condemning their own political maneuvering and spiritual indifference. Festus, despite his attempts to appease the Jews, found no justifiable charge against Paul. His desire to, quote, do the Jews a favor, unquote, overshadowed true justice. Agrippa, after hearing Paul, would later admit that Paul, quote, could have been set free if he had not appealed to Caesar, unquote. Paul's unwavering integrity, despite his imprisonment, shone brightly against the backdrop of their political expediency and lack of genuine conviction regarding the truth. For the modern church, this is a powerful example of how faithful living and a clear conscience can expose the moral failings of those in power or those who compromise the truth for personal gain. When we live out the gospel with integrity, our lives become a solid indictment against the world's compromises and spiritual apathy, causing those who observe us to unwittingly confront their own moral compass and the choices they make regarding the truth. Let's shift our focus now. Pause the video when you finish reading the passage, Acts chapter 25, verse 23 through chapter 26, verse 32. Press the play button to continue the video. Now, let's consider this question. Why is the word witness a good summary of Paul's life and ministry? And why do you think God chose Christian-hating Saul to become famous evangelist Paul? Let's delve into the summary. In the passage, Acts chapter 25, verse 23 through chapter 26, verse 32, we witness Paul's powerful defense before King Agrippa, Bernice, Festus, and other prominent citizens. It is in this detailed account of his past life and radical conversion that the word, quote, witness, unquote, emerges as an exceptionally fitting summary of his entire existence and ministry. Paul was not just a preacher or an apostle. He was the first and foremost a witness to the profound and transformative reality of Jesus Christ. One of the most convincing reasons, quote, witness, unquote, summarizes Paul's life is his personal, undeniable encounter with the resurrected Christ. Paul's testimony before Agrippa is deeply rooted in his personal experience on the Damascus road. He recounts how he, a zealous persecutor of Christians, was ultimately transformed by a blinding light and a voice from heaven, belonging to Jesus himself. He wasn't merely relaying secondhand information or philosophical concepts. He was testifying to what he had personally seen and heard, a direct supernatural intervention that fundamentally altered his life's trajectory. For the modern church, this emphasizes that authentic Christian witness always flows from a genuine encounter with Christ. It is not about reciting doctrines, but sharing the life-changing power of a living Savior evidenced in our own stories of transformation. Furthermore, Paul's life epitomizes the word, quote, witness, unquote, through his unwavering proclamation of the gospel, even in the face of immense suffering and opposition. Despite being a prisoner, chained and brought before powerful rulers, Paul uses every opportunity to declare the resurrection of Jesus and the hope found in him. He doesn't compromise his message or soften its challenging truths, even when Festus declares him, quote, out of his mind, unquote. His relentless dedication to spreading the news, regardless of personal cost, defines him as a true witness. This serves as a powerful model for the modern church, reminding us that genuine witness often requires courage and resilience. We are called to speak truth to power, to stand firm in our convictions, and to continue proclaiming the gospel even when it is unpopular, inconvenient, or brings us hardship. Finally, Paul's effectiveness as, quote, witness, unquote, is demonstrated by his ability to explain and apply the truth of the gospel to diverse audiences. Before Agrippa, a Jew knowledgeable in the law and the prophets, Paul masterfully connects the resurrection of Jesus to the ancient promises of God, showing how Christ fulfills what Moses and the prophets foretold. He speaks with respect and wisdom, engaging his listeners on their own terms while never deviating from the central message. This highlights that a compelling witness is not just about having a story, but about articulately communicating the gospel in a way that resonates with the listener's worldview and understanding. The modern church is similarly called to be culturally astute and biblically grounded, translating the timeless truth of the gospel into language and contexts that diverse audiences can grasp and respond to. Now, considering the reasons for God choosing a Christian-hating Saul to become the famous evangelist Paul, it's a testament to God's unparalleled wisdom and strategic genius. From a purely human perspective, selecting someone who was vehemently opposed to Christianity, even participating in the murder of believers, seems counterintuitive. However, this very fact provided Paul with an unparalleled credibility and depth of understanding when he became a proponent of the faith. He knew the arguments of the opposition intimately because he was the opposition. This allowed him to engage with Jewish audiences with a profound understanding of their concerns and objections, and to address them from a place of shared background before his radical conversion. His past life also served as a dramatic testimony to the transformative power of Christ. If Jesus could change him, he could change anyone. This unexpected choice showcased the limitless grace and power of God, demonstrating that no one is beyond redemption and that God can use anyone, regardless of their past, for his glorious purposes. In closing, I wish you a blessed and prosperous week in the Lord Jesus Christ. God willing, at the next class, we'll resume our study on Acts. The lesson plan is sent via email on the Monday morning prior to the week of class. If you're not receiving the emails or wish to be added to the list, please contact the Antioch Fairfax Station, Virginia website at antioch-church.org or find the class facilitator's email address in the video description below for more information. May God's richest blessing be upon you until next time. Grace and peace be with you.